Commons provides a space for singing communities to realize the liberatory potential of the ensemble as a site of radical imagining.
We promote equitable artistic and organizational practices that harness the positive social impacts of participatory music making for the common good and confront racism, poverty, ableism, LGBTQ+ discrimination, displacement, and much more.
My name is Emilie Amrein.
And I'm André Quadros.
And this is the Choral Commons podcast.
Support for the Choral Commons comes from the University of San Diego and Karen and Tom Mulvaney Center for Community, Awareness and Social Action and the College of Arts and Sciences Arts Engagement Initiative.
USD's Arts Engagement Initiative supports artistic action embedded in and responsive to ever-changing social, cultural, and political circumstances, deep and meaningful engagement with community, and increased access to the arts on the USD campus and beyond. The Choral Commons podcast is produced by Emilie Amrein in partnership with the American Choral Directors Association, Chorus America, the Eric Erickson International Choral Center, and supported by listeners like you.
Additional institutional and creative partners include the Harvard Choral Program, St. Olaf College, University of Hawaii Choirs, Justice Choir, Manado State University Choir, Nava'i Chamber Choir, the Umoja Children's Choir, and Voices 21C.
The Choral Commons aims to provide a space for choirs and conductors to envision innovative and equity-centered practice.
We produce podcasts and community events, offer educational resources on justice-centered practice, and incubate creative, artistic, and compassionate projects that empower choirs and singing communities to work for a just and peaceful world.
Sorry, 1 second. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Emilie Amrein. I am speaking to you tonight here with the Choral Commons on the occupied land of the Kumeyaay people in San Diego, California. We are beginning our series, the Gather series, tonight with two wonderful guests, and I'm so delighted to be introducing you to this series tonight. My colleague André de Quadros and I are so excited to be able to kind of provide a space for us to do a deep dive into the role that the arts can play in incarceration settings, in prison settings. As is our practice, I'm going to give a visual description of myself for anyone who is coming to our conversation with a visual impairment. I'm sitting here in a darkened bedroom. I'm wearing a black top. I am a white woman with long brown hair. I have brown circular glasses. I'm a bit flushed, as you might sense. I'm anxious and nervous and excited to be here with you all. I'm wearing bright red lipstick. And I'll pass now the microphone over to my wonderful colleague, André.
Thank you very, very much, Emilie. And warmest welcome to everybody, wherever you happen to be in the world. We welcome you to this now fresh, engaging season, our second season of the Choral Commons. Welcome. And to continue the visual description, because we see it's so important for us to have a visual description for people who might be engaging with us, who might be sight impaired. I'm a brown person, bald, without, I'm wearing black glasses and with a black long sleeve t-shirt. And I'm in a pretty brightly lit room and with windows behind me. In terms of land acknowledgement, it's for us, it's not just a land acknowledgement, also a land and people and culture acknowledgement. And we understand that people's land is taken away, that people are forced away, that people are forced in, that that land has been taken in all kinds of different ways. And so we simply want to anchor our work very strongly in terms of the way the Choral Commons thinks of itself as recognizing that we are on the original unceded homelands of diverse indigenous people all over the world, where we happen to be, and understanding that our countries, the nation state, has stolen through colonization and genocide the cultures, the land, the stories, the poetry, the musics of people. And what we ask for is we insist on justice and reparation for all oppressed people who have been victims of genocide. And I think it's back to you, Emilie. No, it's back. It's still on to me. So, and I'm so happy for us to continue this conversation, to talk about what we are assembled here to do. And this is our, as I mentioned already, our first episode in this very first season of a new kind of project. And the topic for today is singing in prisons. And the reason we started with that is because we see prisons as an extension of the violence we see around us. We were all taken aback by the sheer brutality of the murder of George Floyd on the streets of Minnesota. But one of my participants from the prison here in Boston said to me, there are no videos to show the brutality against people in prison. The brutality on the streets of the United States is not even equaled by the brutality we see behind bars, the brutality that is for which there are no videos. What we have in the United States is human rights catastrophe of unspeakable and brutal proportions, where 5% of the population of the world, of the world's prisoners, 5% of the world's population in the United States, and we have 20% of the world's prisoners. African Americans are imprisoned at the rate of, for example, an African American gets imprisoned for about the same length for a non-violent offense as a white person for a violent offense. And we can go on and on with these statistics because they're so deeply offensive to any concept of fairness. But it is important to point out that behind all of that, you have people who are missing, families who are broken up, neighborhoods who are destroyed by the deep war against African Americans in terms of prisons. I want to point out, of course, that almost everybody in prison is also poor. So it's not simply a matter of race, it's also a matter of poverty. And it's not just a problem of men, it's a problem of families everywhere, because as S.C. Justice points out, when men are incarcerated, it's a women's issue. And as one of my colleagues talks about, when men are incarcerated, it's a children's issue. And so when we go on and we understand how when one person is incarcerated, 20 people may be affected, and then you think about the millions of people in prison, and you think about the millions of people whose lives are deeply ravaged by this work, by this situation. And so we bring this situation front and center into the work that is being done in prisons, and this is where we come in to talking about singing in prisons. And choral work has been happening in prisons for a while, and I'm very, very delighted to be introducing this session with these two guests. Kathy Roma, I'm really delighted to introduce Kathy to everybody. I started following Kathy in the last century when I was conducting a women's chorus, and Kathy was in fact the founder of the first LGBT chorus many years ago, and then I fell in love with Kathy's work in prisons in Ohio, and then we started collaborating. We worked together in Boston and in Ohio, and I really want to say how deeply I've admired Kathy for so many years. She's a model for me, model of compassion, of generosity, of sheer music making, of joy, of hope, of sympathy, and so on. And so very, very warmest welcome to you, Kathy. And I'm going to introduce Michael Powell as well. I asked Kathy, I said we very much would like to have you bring along one of your participants. And she said, well, I can't think of anyone better than Michael Powell, who is an artist with whom Kathy worked in the Amrein Correctional Facilities, the Coogee Men's Chorus, and he's an accomplished percussionist, a recently released returning citizen. He starred in the production of Hamilton when he was incarcerated. And so in welcoming them both, we are so delighted to foreground this whole topic area of singing in prisons. And I'm going to ask you, Kathy, first to introduce yourself a little bit, to talk about your work and talk about yourself really, and then we'll turn over to Michael, and then we'll talk about how the two of you encountered each other. So over to you, Kathy, first.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, André. Thank you, Emilie. It's great to be here. I am on Shawnee land here in Ohio, this portion of Ohio. And for your audience, I am a white woman with gray hair and black glasses, and I have ear pieces in so I can hear better. It's really good to be here. I started going into prisons in Ohio in 1990. I had just finished my doctorate in choral conducting and had the opportunity to be an adjunct professor teaching music courses in 1994 college that had an academic program, an AA and a BA program. And when I became full-time in 1993 at Warren Correctional, the Dean of Correctional Education asked me to start a choir. So I had never started a men's chorus. It was part of an academic program. So at a Quaker college, I did pieces that had to do with peacemaking, and we did spirituals and gospel, and a piece from South Africa, world music, a repertoire that fit into the program at the college. And so that was Umoja Men's Chorus, and I stayed there for a very long time. I was there from 1993 till 2018, doing that chorus. We did 4 CDs. We had many people, guest artists, come and work with us. 2 of the Sweet Honey and the Rock performers, Dr. Bernice Johnson Regan and Dr. Issa Maria Barnwell. We competed in the World Choir Games. We did so much. All kinds of repertoire. Let's see, in retirement, I have now 3 choirs, 3 prison choirs, 2 men's prison choirs and a woman's prison choir. And it's exciting work. I want always the repertoire to speak to the lives of the people. So what happened after that first initial CD that we did, which had to do with the mission of Wilmington College, I started paying attention to the talents of the people within the choir and really wanted to nurture their writing abilities, their compositional abilities. So it was at that point, maybe 4 or 5 years into the work, that I realized that there were some amazing pieces being written. And so then the choirs started to perform those works. And I had them transcribed so that I could teach them from the written page, and I could teach music about music from the written page to the people that were singing in the choir. And I think that meant a lot to them, and it gave them impetus to learn on a bunch of different levels. I learned so much from them because they,
Of course, we do, don't we?
yeah,
It's
the
incredible.
men, their ears were I learned so much about listening, and their ears picked everything up so quickly. And so it was a learning experience for me to begin to be a better listener, and then being able also to impart some information about the printed page. So I've done such a variety of music, but I kind of wouldn't mind talking about that. A friend of mine who's a tenor, John Wright, he said, why?
Hang on just one second. Can we? We'll come back to that story. No, I'm just.
Okay.
I just want to bring. I just want to bring Black into this. Say,
Okay.
I mean, Michael. Can we hang on to that story, Kathy? We just love it. I just
No
want to
problem.
make sure we bring Michael into this. So, Michael, tell us just bring yourself into this. Who's Michael Powell? And give us your story a little bit, as much as you want to.
Okay, so I'm Michael Powell, more affectionately known as Black Son. Most people just call me Black. When I was 18, I committed a felony which resulted in me getting 20 years in prison. So but I didn't actually have to do the whole 20 years. I recently have been released. I've been out for 9 months now, and I did 13 years, 8 months. But just to backtrack a little bit, not to get too far ahead of myself, um, I've always been musically inclined. Like you said, I'm an accomplished percussionist. We'll say, that's being very generous, but I'll take it. So I played drums almost all my life. I've written music, rap music, for the majority of my life, and poetry for a number of years. So, music and rhyme comes kind of second nature to me. I got involved with the Coogee Men's Chorus and Dr. Roma just on a whim one day. Somebody told me that, it was a chorus down there singing, and they was about to start working on some projects that they felt like I would be useful in and felt like it would be beneficial to me. So one day I showed up, and Dr. Roma stress tested me and had me sing in front of everybody. And, the rest was history. We were able to work on a few things. We were able to, work on Les Mis, and able to do Beethoven's Fidelio, a version of it. And we were also able to work on the Hamilton project. So, I was able to accomplish a lot of things through that. And now, even now, being here and still having contact with Dr. Roma and still being able to share, my time and energy with her. That's just what, that's what the music did for me. So that's just a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's it's a great story. Emilie, do you want to jump in there, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think that, as kind of an extension of this introduction to both of you, what I would love to know is, what a typical musical interaction looked like when you were working together.
Should I go first so I can tell the
you
truth?
go first.
So that way Dr. Roma don't steer this. It looks like this, literally. Dr. Roma walks into a room of Black, brown, and white faces, and we all have no idea what is going on. We're laughing and joking and playing around until Dr. Roma decides that it's time for us not to do that no more. She'll play a couple keys on the piano, warm us up, and then teach us something totally out of the air, something that we've never heard before, something we've never experienced. And somehow every time she manages to bring it together. I'm just gonna be full-fledged honest with y'all. Coogee is not her best choir. Singing wise, we are not her best choir, but I do believe that we have the best energy. So I say that, what we lack in musical talent, we more than make up in character, and that's just how we rock.
I want to say that's completely accurate. I wouldn't say, I would say that it's my newest choir of the 4 that I've started with in prisons. And so I worried about it because it's a men's chorus, and I had been working with another men's chorus the men have been singing with me for some of them 15 years. And so they knew my style. I knew what they were capable of doing. And so when Black says, it wasn't the best choir, it was because they had heard, we had made CDs and they had heard about these things. So, but I'd say that was accurate in terms of a description of what happens in a rehearsal. And people, I think, would question what the heck I was asking them to do, especially in singing the German, the Fidelio, the prisoners chorus, that, and it turned out, I think it turned out that people really love doing it and love the meaning, the context of those words, and understanding the German and the sound of the German and the translation. I was kind of blown away
It wasn't too
about the
weird.
reception. Pardon me?
It wasn't too weird.
Well, you should speak to it, Black.
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, it was weird. It was uncomfortable. It was all of those things that'll make you say no, that'll make you be like, I don't really want to. But at the same time, though, to be able to accomplish it, there's a sense of pride there to be able to identify yourself within a character. There's a sense of seeing yourself outside of yourself, which I think we all need. And and just to do it with people that you consider brothers. You know what I'm saying? That type of camaraderie for us to pull together something that none of us thought we were going to be able to do.
Right.
That makes it special.
Yeah.
I think that's so amazing. This idea of the music as something that is a little bit beyond, and being able to accomplish it, and like what that might mean. So I'm wondering, I have a question, Kathy, for you to start, and then Michael, I have a second question for you that's related. So Kathy, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit, because I think a lot of folks who are watching tonight and who are listening at future points might be thinking, this is something that I feel motivated to become involved in. And I can tell from how you describe the work, just how much thought and intention you bring into kind of designing your program and the space, and even the description of kind of the joyful playfulness at the beginning of the encounter. It seems so thoughtful and intentional. This is just not like a mistake that just happened to become a habit, right? And so I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about what your intentions were and have been, and if you were going to advise somebody who is just starting out in this work, what they should kind of keep in mind, not necessarily from like the technical side of like, how do I set up a program? How do I, who do I talk to about, being able to kind of do a program in a prison setting? Because I think that's like, it's very site specific, right? But when you're talking to, let's say, somebody who is accustomed to conducting a choir in a church or in a school or in a community context that's never been even inside a prison, like what should they be thinking about? What are you thinking about as you design this program? And then Michael, after Kathy describes this intention and what she might advise, I'm curious about like what impact that design has had on you and the other participants in the program. Like what did it do for you that Kathy designed it this way?
Okay. I think repertoire leads me all the time. I'm a text-driven conductor, what the music says. And so I was always very interested in bringing a diverse repertoire to the choirs. And for, let's say, the women's choir. I've conducted women's choir since 1974. And so I know the power of bringing in music, singing music that empowers people, that speaks to their experience, that enables them to let go. So in the women's choir, that's what I brought in. And I had obviously a large repertoire to draw from. And with the women's choir, I also had people from the outside coming in. It is an inside-outside choir. So I'd say that for that. When I started out with the men's choir, I had a certain repertoire in my mind that I wanted to do, and bringing people in to assist with that. But I was so influenced by people like my friend, the story I was going to tell, John Wright, a tenor, had come ever since I started the choirs. He came in to do workshops, and then he moved to Maryland. And I had done a piece or two from Les Mis, and John said, "Well, why don't we do a program of Les Mis? I'll bring some students, and why don't we talk about 7 or 8 pieces that the choir would do?" So that's what happened. And I did not believe, I had never done a piece of musical theater with my choirs, with any of the prison choirs, because that's not where I was coming from. And I saw the most unbelievable thing. So we did that first at London, and that was amazing. And then Coogee said, that they showed an interest, and I said, "Oh my gosh, let's do it." And then they did it. And then it was from that experience that Hamilton grew. And so I knew once that they did Les Mis, which was something, we read the high school version. I read the high school version, not the 1,000-page version. We all read it together, and we got some coaching. So that leapt us into something totally new, which I would not have chosen. I wanted to, but I didn't think that we were capable. I didn't know. But soon as Les Mis happened, and the grasping of it, and the acting, and what Black was talking about, the development of character, it was completely amazing. And so I don't know if that's answering your question exactly. It's the music that I want to bring in, that I want to people to experience, and the context of the music. I think when I started, the guys were very comfortable singing gospel because that was their home base. And I brought in unaccompanied spirituals, and they really had never sung unaccompanied spirituals. And so that was a new experience for them. So it was a kind of a combination of working together. I'm a leader that wants to sense what's going on. I'm not a dictatorial, I come in and you do this, and this is what I want you to do, and this is
You're
the way
the
it goes,
opposite.
and you're going to do my way or the highway. I want to see what works, and how people come to it, and what they bring, and if it's speaking to them. So that's what's important to me. Black, take over.
Right.
uh, well, I feel like at first it's important for me to say this. The best thing that Dr. Roma ever did for any of us was come in there and really be herself. I got to say that first. Because, I used to meet people all the time who came in and thought that they were going to be the end all be all to save my life and transform me. And they had no idea who I was, period. So just to come in there and be you so that I could be me was the best thing that you ever did for us. Then on top of that, you challenged us. And I don't know if you ever stood in front of a 5'1" woman with an attitude before, but sometimes it get a little scary. And her challenges are like it's not a I bet I can jump further than you type of thing. It's I feel like this could suit you in a way, and I know that you don't, but trust me, and if you trust me, it could happen. And a lot of us never even got that type of trust in our own families before. You know what I mean? So the challenges, and I've been challenged in almost everything that I did with Coogee, because I'm not a singer for real. I'm not a singer. I'm not a choral member. At least I wasn't until that happened. So it was definitely that. Then, just with the development of Coogee and being able to try new things, you don't have the fear of failure by yourself, because we're a group. So, that shy guy who has the biggest voice in the chorus may not step out on his own, but with Coogee behind him, or with Dr. Roma encouraging him, those things happen. And that gives you new confidence. That's a self-esteem booster. And my self-esteem was already low-key high, but it was boosted through the roof through Coogee. You know what I mean? So, it's just, I don't have any bad that happened from it. It did nothing but enrich. That's it, just for me to be able to cultivate new skills. She trusted us to be able to write songs and present songs that we could perform together, and also challenged us to open up our minds to new things. And you learn a lot, because Dr. Roma will make you do your homework on the things that we sing. So, like she said, we sing spirituals, so we learn about spirituals. We for Black History Month, we did a presentation of some songs, and she made us do our history, which I think we all need. Like, we all need history lessons.
Right.
We
I feel
certainly do.
like what I hear from both of you as sort of takeaways from what this experience has been in terms of your intention and the impact of it is that to kind of leverage what choral music has as its unique feature of the text, lean into kind of the repertoire and its contexts, present challenges, and think intentionally about how you're teaching so that they're just out of reach, but then reachable, to come as you are authentically, and to lean into kind of the communal aspect of it. And I love all of these things. And I feel like what you're describing is what like the beauty and phenomenon of the choir is. But I guess I just want to ask, and we have just a couple more minutes for this question, and then I want to turn it over to André. Like, is there any difference in what these things, these 5 things that you just articulated? Is there any difference in how that works in the prison context? Or do you know what I mean? Because if in fact all music educators should be thinking about repertoire and like choosing texts that really are powerful, presenting challenges that are just out of reach to create an opportunity for growth, for us to come together as we truly are authentically, to lean into collective and the community, what makes it different, Kathy and Michael, also between what a music educator might be doing going into their high school, doing those same 5 things, and what you're doing in the context of prison? How does like the location of this work change any aspect of it? I guess that's the question. I didn't word it very well.
If I understand, you have to be totally prepared for any eventuality. When Ethan and Dan came from New York to tape us and to meet the choir, to rehearse the Prisoners Chorus, all of a sudden we couldn't be in our rehearsal space, and we were in something that was so small and uninviting in a way. It had stuff all over. That was the only place we could go. So I would say, and then, I come to the prison and the whole place is shut down because there's been a drug overdose. Or, you have to be, is this what you're asking? What do you have to deal with?
I also think that there is like, I think that, Michael, you sort of referenced this before, that some people who are running programs in prison contexts have an intention to come in and kind of do some sort of savior-ish type of thing, right? And that seems like somehow disingenuous. You can kind of spot it a mile away, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, go on.
So Dr. Roma, you said a word that I like to highlight. You said uninviting. And I think that is the thing that should be noticed immediately. In courses in schools and churches, it's very inviting. Come in, join us,
Right,
sing with us,
yeah,
be with us, and we help each other. In prison, that sort of behavior is in a way frowned upon, especially by the orchestrators of the prison.
Of course.
The Geppettos of the prison who pull the strings. Like, we're not looked at as people who are inviting, who are welcoming, who are warm, who are caring, who are empathetic. We're not looked at in that way.
No.
So, it's kind of adverse to the prison culture. But when you step into that space, though, at least when you greet me, the first thing you get is a hug. Like, what's up? And this is just a choral member of somebody who I never had seen before, but has been in this prison longer than I have. But now we know each other, and there are different walks of life there. There are, and Coogee is guys in their 60s, and I just turned 33. But them still brothers. And had it not been for us coming to Coogee, we would have never crossed paths. We'd have never spoke before. So that's the thing. Like prison is all about separation, but there is no separation in Coogee. There is no separation in the chorus at all. You can't be, because then we wouldn't be able to do what we came there to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing is the nature of being uninvited.
Yes,
Yeah.
the
Thank
nature
you.
of being uninvited.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think that, you're setting the scene for us. And I think that for those in the audience who haven't had that physical experience of stepping into a prison space and recognizing kind of the brutality and violence of it, and understanding the sort of humanity affirming work of kind of singing in community in that space and how countercultural it is. And it's really helpful to hear your descriptions of it. So.
Yeah, and I guess thank you, Black, because for me, having gone in now for 30 some odd years in these different prisons, I have gotten um, not spat upon, but treated in such a way, asked questions about why do I want to come in and do this work, um, and walking through a gauntlet of people who are staring at me, looking at me, asking me, disbelieving that I cared so much. So there's absolutely, definitely that, walking through these halls and being not disrespected, and um, people just questioning why I take the time to do this work.
Yes, I understand that. I want to. I think Emily's question and comment was very appropriate there in the way she framed it up. Because I have to tell you, when I started working in prisons many years ago, I thought I was doing. I went in there with an attitude like, I'm going to do some good kind of work, and it took me a very short time to realize that I had much more to learn than I had ever anticipated. And also, what I was saying to Black this morning when we talked, I said I actually learned about things I didn't expect to learn. Of course, I learned about how to be a better teacher and a better musician, but I actually learned about love. I learned about hope. I learned about being a better father. I learned about being a better partner and a better person in so many different kinds of ways. And I think it's really I feel as if it's the birthplace of a kind of a new incarnation of me that the prison has been for me, certainly. And I wanted to kind of make just a comment about you. There's something about you, Kathy, I can't quite explain. I can see what Black is saying when you come into the room, because when you come into the room, I never sense it's about you. You're there, you come in with a state of, almost as if in a state of grace, you know what I mean? There's something very, very, it's really it's not definable. It's something very special about who you are as a person, and I felt that very much being in your presence, and I can still remember when we had the Indonesians and your women's choir and Umoja and all this kind of thing. It was kind of a crazy event that we did together in Cincinnati. Yeah. But I want to come back to this. There's so much that I feel we can talk about. But I want to talk about this aspect of what it means to be actually working in with this kind of situation. What is the purpose of our work? Sometimes I think the purpose of our work is making music. But what does that mean anyway? I said, this idea of hope, about love, about consolation, about the thing that is so special about music making. And of course, text may drive it, but what is the ultimate purpose of it? And we're working within a system that we actually believe is systemically unfair and so forth. And we're working within the system that presents us with these restrictions. But how do we? It's a thing. We're doing this kind of stuff in this artificial environment. Men are denied the presence of women, and I mean that in all kinds of ways. That I think we need all genders, right? We need to understand ourselves fully. We need mothers and sisters and and so forth. And we're denied so much of what it means to be human. And then we still go in there, and you go in there, Kathy, and you try to create hope and consolation and inspiration and so on. How do you see these endpoints for your kind of work?
Well, oh gosh. Let me just go at it sideways, maybe. When I was talking to a friend, her perspective was the most important thing was to get people from the outside inside to see these programs and projects and plays and concerts. And I did not. I took me a minute to kind of think that was the most important thing for me. The most important thing was going into the prison to gosh. To meet people, to work with beautiful human beings. And so, yes, I can say that, oh gosh, that the work that I do teaches me so much. And I just want to bring people together. I want people, yes, you're talking about love, you're talking about hope, you're talking about inspiration. All those things are so very important to in the collaborative process of learning that we establish. And but I think there is a place because I've changed. I've changed because I now want to know everything about mass incarceration, and I understand. I'm reading with groups of people, and taking some actions too, and being part of organizations. And I do see bringing people in from the outside to learn, because it's these are our prisons. They're not just these isolated. They are these isolated places. But how do we make change within what we're doing with the people, the artists on the inside, and then change people so that they can see what's going on in the inside and who people are, that these are human beings, these are beautiful artists or creative people. I don't know if I'm getting at what you're saying. I think there's a kind of a circle that has to happen in order for us to change these institutions. So I think I'm trying to say that there's multi levels of the work that I do and the care that I bring in, and I don't know.
Right,
I'll
right.
stop. I
I
don't know
mean,
if
I
made
actually
sense.
think maybe my question is probably not even a question. It's like even a statement, because I think that's what you do. That's what you do. You create these spaces for inspiration and consolation and hope and so forth. You know, I've seen it in real life. Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Black, you can talk about that as being somebody who participates in environment. It's
Yeah, for
more than
sure.
music, right? It's much more than
Yeah.
music.
So I would say it's just the ability to create positive energy and then fostering everything that comes with that. That is the biggest thing that I got out of it, is being able to remove myself from an area or a space or a mindset or whatever the case may be that is this, and moving into a space with Dr. Roma in Coogee that was positive, uplifting, and then being able to nurture all the things that come with that. So, seeing doing performances is cool. Seeing all these different people who come in and make music and sing with us is cool. But if we wasn't in that headspace where we was already loving what we were doing, it wouldn't matter. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
but
So
Black, can I just do a quick follow up question? You know, in the prison I worked in Norfolk, we also had rival gangs in the room, and so part of it was actually building the community of the community of men.
right.
I mean, how did that kind of those issues appear, and how did the community get stuck together?
So I'm not gonna say that there weren't people in rival gangs in Coogee, because that would be a lie. But at the time though, it wasn't no beef like that. And plus, Marion was unique in a way that the program set there was like it was kind of designed to kind of quell that. So that wasn't necessary. I mean, they were rival gangs, but they weren't rival gangs to the point where it would be violence in the room in Coogee. That wasn't a thing. What it was though was rival egos, crazy. and I don't and a rival ego is, to me, at least in my experience, is much bigger than a rival gang. so you know, just having to deal with that, having to feel like you jockeying for position in a space it causes a lot of friction. And if you aren't willing to kind of surrender to the group in a way, then you become a cancer to the group.
Yeah.
And the group will eventually die out. Like, nobody wants to be a part of that. Nobody's coming here for that. I don't want to come down here and argue and beef with you about nothing. That's not what I came here for.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Emilie,
You know?
how's this landing with what's bubbling inside for you?
No, I think that I was just, as you were both talking, I was just thinking about, you know, my own experiences going into prisons here in Southern California. And, you know, what I was thinking about and I think there's been research on this, right? Like the impacts of, obviously, the traumatic impacts of being in this violent space for incarcerated men, women, and children, right? And also then this other area of research, like people from the outside coming in, that there is like a degree of experiencing of violence. And I wonder if you could talk about, you know, just because we don't have a whole lot of time left, how you navigated, for both of you. And I think this is maybe a crucial question for somebody thinking about this type of program in the abstract, who hasn't had the opportunity to experience it in their own bodies. Kathy, for you, how did you go from your civilian life on the outside into this brutal space, and then back out and back in and back out, like this sort of crossing this threshold? And I think that there's probably a similar threshold, Michael, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you know, going from your life in the rest of your day to going into the classroom space, or the space where you had the rehearsals, right? Like, how is it that you kind of protect yourself from what is both like, do you understand where I'm getting at? Like, there is this kind of like pain and suffering and feeling of opening to kind of relationship in a violent context that is tricky to navigate as a practitioner and as just a human being. And so I'm wondering how you like hold that. How do you like protect yourself? How do you, I mean, I don't mean protect yourself in like, I mean emotionally and spiritually, right?
Yeah.
You want to go, Black?
I can. So
Okay.
well, first of all, it's just me. You know what I mean? That's just me. I was always one who was willing to sacrifice myself for the good of the group. That's just who I've been for a long time. That's me. But in that environment, I feel like, you know, I mean, people sacrifice themselves for the good of the group in a very negative way all of the time. It's about what was I doing, and how was I able to be an asset to propel people forward instead of us remaining stagnant or reverting back. That's what my whole thing. That's my whole drive. That's what I do now. You know, so I know that, you know, in that setting, in prison, and in a lot of different areas that I've lived in my life, being vulnerable is dangerous. Being emotional is dangerous, and being empathetic is dangerous. But I just don't care. I'm just willing to be that way because I don't like being otherwise. So that's how I was able to move through, and that's how I've been moving throughout my entire incarceration.
Thank you, Black, because because the most important thing to me is the people inside, the singers. I was willing to talk to myself and tolerate what situations I was in, because number one, I was learning so much about the system by the way I was treated, by the waiting outside and not being able to come in, and then having to be escorted. I mean, all 30 years, a ton of things. So what kept me alive, what kept my spirit going, was um, being with the singers, being with the choir, and what I gained from it. And then, of course, I'm always trying to bring people together. So every time have been in all those situations in prison, I want to bring people in. I want my life to be holistic. I want people to experience what I do, and so that I can talk about it on the outside. I can share with people the experiences, and then the more people I bring in, then they get to understand the situation, what I'm experiencing in terms of the music and the spiritual aspect of it, and the struggle aspect of it. And so it's let's see. The importance of walking through whatever I had to go through, even though it was hard, it kept teaching me about what the experiences of the people who I was working with. I mean, that's what they went through. If I'm experiencing um, just disgusting attitudes and people being so disrespectful, and I'm seeing them be disrespectful to the people I bring in, and then and so if I'm being treated that way, I know that the people inside are being treated way worse.
Much,
So
much, much worse.
there's and how do I sustain myself? Music, doing music is what sustains me. I mean, and being with, making music on the inside, that's worth everything. It's worth the struggle, the gauntlet that you go through, the judging that goes through. And it makes you stronger. It makes you want to change the system and learn about it, and bring as many people in. I do think that's really important. I think I've brought in all the choirs that I've ever conducted on the outside, I've brought into the inside, whether it's my women's choir, a church choir, a community choir, the choir I do right now, the World House Choir. Is that answering your question and getting at what you're talking about?
I think so, Emilie. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I just am kind of tracking also the comments from folks on Facebook, and Christina Berger, our friend from Minnesota, says hello, by the way, and asks, when you're talking about this disrespect, was it coming from employees, inmates, or both? Just as a quick clarification.
Most of the time, about 99% of the time, from the staff and from the correctional officers and the people who work in the prison. Rarely have I experienced disrespect from the people I'm working with, the people I care about, the music makers, the
Absolutely.
creators.
Never.
Well, I had one incident.
Okay. So we're sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Did I interrupt you there? It's like a bit of a lag here.
No.
Kathy and Black, you guys, you both of you are so amazing, and I wish I could hug you at the moment, because well, one day we'll see each other again, and we'll hang out.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be amazing. So to both of you, Kathy, after 25 or so years of friendship, and just want to say thank you again, and to have you in this at the beginning of our new season of this gathering is really very, very important.
Thank you.
You've been a model for the nation in so many different kinds of ways. If I start to talk about it, it'll take too long. So people need to read about you.
I just do what I do, and I just love it. And I sometimes wish I had more language to speak about it. But so I hope I've communicated, a little bit about what this has been and what it can be for people who are thinking about doing this work, because it's invaluable.
Yes, indeed. And Black, you're a new friend, but you're not
Absolutely.
you're not we're not going to let you go that easily. So it's really great to talk to you and to get to know you and to understand where you've been, and you're also an inspiration, a huge inspiration for us as we
you.
start to think
Yeah.
about music and so on.
Thank you.
It's great to
Yes.
have you sharing with us, and so I'm going to just wrap up by saying thank you and acknowledging some of our folks. We have a leadership group in the Choral Commons, and apart from Emilie and me, we have Bradford Dumont, Michael Janice, Crystal Moran, Nikki Manlove, Jasper Sussman, and Jace Saplan. We thank them. We thank our subscribers on Patreon. Lorraine Padden, Amanda Stevenson, Rebecca Parson, Liz Eshen, Christopher Owen, Amy Sari, Jake Stensberg, Sylvia Thorson-Smith, and the Justice Choir. If you want to contribute to our work, you can do so on www.thechoralcommons.com/Patreon. And now I hand over to my wonderful colleague, Emilie.
I just wanted to give a sneak peek about what's coming up next here at the Choral Commons. So tomorrow, we're so excited to be dropping the first episode of the Engender podcast series. This is a special project of the Choral Commons that considers singing and the wisdom of gender diversity, hosted by Nikki Manlove and Brad Dumont. So you want to check that out. You can pick that up at any of our, wherever you listen to podcasts, or at our website or on Facebook. Then next week, we host our second Gather Arts and Incarceration conversation with Mary Cohen, Simone Fearson, Arnold Grice, and Carletta White. And so you don't want to miss out on this continuation of the conversation, because this is such an important topic, such a convergence of issues of racial justice, equity, mass incarceration, policing. This is the time for us to be thinking about the role that arts can play in dismantling some of these systems, or at least humanizing people who have been so historically dehumanized by this unjust system. So you'll want to check out our next conversation, which is the same time, Wednesday, at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on Facebook Live. So thank you all so much for joining us. And thanks to those of you on Facebook. And we look forward to the next conversation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very,
Thank
very,
you.
very, very much. Love, love, love.